So welcome everybody to the State of the Library, March 8th. This is something that going back years and years ago, we used to do this and we weren't getting a terribly large crowd, so we stopped doing it for a few years and then came to the conclusion that it really didn't matter if one person or 30 people showed up. It's the right thing to do. Greetings, Mr. Wick, welcome. It's the right thing to do just to be able to offer the opportunity for the public to come in, hear what we're doing. Also, it's not that the library director, that's me, isn't available anytime to meet and talk with people, but to do it in a public forum like this, I think, is valuable. So we're going to go ahead and get started with, and I want to thank right out of the gate our PR marketing manager, Heather Finati over here, really pulled the presentation together, got a lot of this together for me. She does a wonderful job for the library. If you don't know me, my name's Andrew Mangels, the director of the library, and hard to believe, but I will be here 20 years in December. And when this goes out, I think it's the little column that I wrote for the annual report that will be mailed out. And I recalled a little anecdote that we had a library patron, been coming for a very long time, and she and I have had our ups and downs, and at one point she left a review on Yelp that suggested that the library director has been here for so long, probably because he can't get a job anywhere else. And so my staff showed that to me, and I think they thought I might be upset, are we going to take this down? And I just looked at it and said, well, it's not true. I mean, it's kind of, it is true. So, but I have been here for almost 20 years, and I have enjoyed every last minute of it. I often tell people that I moved my family 800 miles to be here for this job, and not a day has gone by that I have regretted that, because this organization is an amazing organization, and it has very little to do with me. It has a lot to do with the Board of Trustees. Almost all are here today with us. So we have plants, we have Will Perry, we have Lauren Golick, we have Peter Schindler and Elizabeth Sheehy, and we're missing Tinyi and Jason. Yeah, so two other trustees, they may show up. But to have all my trustees here, I really appreciate that, because it is the trustees that are the ones that come up with the mission and vision of the organization. They are the ones that oversee the overall operation to make sure that the library is in fact going in the direction that the community would like to see it go. They are also the stewards of the financial resources. So they are the ones that pay attention to those things. And we had a trustee a number of years ago named Don Mitterholzer who really set the tone for that. His motto was, with our fiscal officer at the time, Jana, he would go to Jana and constantly say, Jana, have you sharpened your pencil? Did you sharpen your pencil? That was, are you going to your vendors and telling them to sharpen their pencil? That was his phrase. And we used to have that quote up in the boardroom, and Heather's working on getting that quote back. And the beauty of it was, if you look around the wonderful quotes all throughout the library, those quotes can cost anywhere from $700 to $1,500 depending on the length of them, but they're donated, right? Those are usually donated quotes. The library's not paying for it, but it's a price tag. So it was kind of funny when we unveiled that quote. I had gone to Drug Mart and bought $7 worth of vinyl stickers and put that up there just to emphasize sharpen your pencil, right? And so our board has always followed that precept that Don set down long ago, which was be mindful of the dollars. These are our tax dollars. We want to be mindful of them, so we constantly are trying to sharpen our pencil. When it comes to the board and our mission statement, this is our mission statement, that this library provides an inclusive environment that fosters learning, community, and connection. Learning, community, and connection. Those three things have always really been true, and an ever-changing world as well. But I don't know, maybe you don't agree with me, maybe you do. I think that the pace of the ever-changing world has gotten to warp speed, right? I mean, back in the day, you might go decades without necessarily, seeing significant change, leaps and bounds kinds of change. But it certainly is true now that things move so fast that in order to stay on top of the learning, building that community connection, the ever-changing world component of that is really important. And when we talk about the programming we do here, the one area to me that fits in with our mission more than anything that is so vital is artificial intelligence, the AI debate, the AI milieu that we're in, because that defines ever-changing. In order to learn about it, if you are not currently in school, or where are you going to learn about this kind of thing? And so the library has made a commitment this year to ensure that we're offering some type of AI training every month. And it is controversial. Of all the things that the library does, right, you think, well, what's controversial? AI is controversial, especially in the art world. We have this wonderful art display on the first and second floor. Should we allow artists who generate art with AI to display their art? If we do, there's going to be a lot of people who are upset that that is AI-generated art. If we don't, artists who use AI in perhaps a responsible manner are going to say that that's not fair. It's a classic lose-lose situation for the library, but it's incumbent upon us to wade through those murky areas and make sure that we're doing our job of fostering learning, building that community, and taking into consideration an ever-changing world. So AI is going to be interesting to see how that ultimately impacts our ability to carry out our mission. Also, I think when we talk about our mission and who we're serving, it's very interesting that, I just checked the number to be sure, 25% of the population of Westlake is over 65. And I believe it's pretty close to roughly 50% is over 50. So we have an older community, and we want to make sure that when we're fostering learning and building community, that we do take that into consideration. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get to some of our partnerships and programming things. We're also governed by a strategic plan, and I want to talk about that briefly in the sense that this plan is roughly 25, 26, 27. We're kind of in the middle of that plan. The three areas that we decided to focus on were partnerships first and foremost. That is really big for this library. We have lots and lots of partners. I'll talk about that in just a second. But the other two are somewhat staff related, but that they speak to making sure that we are meeting the mission. So facilitating continuous assessment and evaluation. That part of the plan really revolves around things like being able to quantify and qualify the kinds of programming that we do here. So we have 1,000 programs a year. Are they the right programs? We have to be careful because we're not strictly speaking a business-private sector model. So you could argue that if you had a program that was averaging 6 people a program, should you continue to do that program? Well, it depends. First of all, those 6 people are finding value out of that. Is it who's running that program? Is it the library? Is it volunteer? But that program may be vital for those 6 folks. When you juxtapose that between some programs, the other night, just last week, Tuesday night, that Porter room was full of 140 people to see a person reenact Julia Childs recounting her days in the OSS. This is woven all through all these different elements. That was a partner program that led to our mission. It was Women in History. A couple of years ago, some ladies from Women in History came to my office, and I'm being somewhat tongue-in-cheek, pounded their fist on the table and said, "Why isn't the library doing Women in History programs?" And I said, "I don't know, but we will, I promise." And with the help of the Friends of the Library, who is also very well represented here, and I'm looking at the Hayjacks and Celia Scarma, very grateful for our Friends group because they're the ones that provide us the money to put on programs. And so we've devoted some of that money to Women in History. So we have a program that had 140 people. Sometimes we have a program that have 10. We look at those very carefully and decide which. You don't have to have 140 programs to keep doing it, but we want to be mindful of that. So we want to look at our metrics in that second continuous assessment evaluation. Are we doing what we should be doing to meet the mission? And the third one, which is champion staff growth and success, we do believe that we have the best staff. Any library you go to, I would dare you to tell me you found a library that had a better staff than this one. We have such wonderful people who are knowledgeable, skilled. If you haven't heard the name Frances, then I'd be shocked. Frances is she's a 20-hour employee that gets compliments on a weekly basis. People call me to tell me if they see me in public, like, oh yeah, you know Frances? Yes, I know Frances. We love Frances. And so I always kind of joke a little bit, like, we don't have a formal customer service training program here. We really don't. We don't sit people down and say, this is what customer service looks like at Porter Library, do it or else. We don't do that. What we do is we hire well. We hire really, really well. We get great people who want to be here, who want to help people, and that comes through. If people are happy, then we'll give good customer service. But a lot of the champion staff and growth is really aimed at the metrics of, is our staff doing a great job at selecting materials? Is our staff doing a great job at picking the programs they're going to do? Are they doing a great job, and are they doing that because they like being here, they like coming to work, and they put that effort in? So all of those three things really work together. So the first one I want to talk a little bit more in depth about, and that's partnerships. So what we're going to really be focusing very hard on this year is identifying really who our partners are, why are they our partners, what kinds of levels are there for partnerships. I think our two best examples of what I would consider strategic partners are the Carolyn L. Farrell Foundation and Connecting for Kids. So Connecting for Kids is the poster child because it started here about 13 years ago when a lady in Westlake, Sarah Bentamaki, she had been a hard-charging executive at Progressive when she had two children and both of them were diagnosed with Fragile X. And so she wound up having to leave her job to take care of her kids and get the intervention that was needed, and most of that at the time was all on the east side of Cleveland, and she wanted something to be on the west side. She started meeting in one of these rooms with a group of other moms and professionals to sort of start something, and they were working through that. And Sarah came to me one day. I did not know Sarah. She came to me one day and said, I want to show you a presentation about this organization. By the time she was done, I said, I'm in, let's go, I want to be part of this. And she said, well, I wasn't asking you for anything. And I said, that's okay, we want in. So the next thing you know, I was writing checks that I couldn't cash because I promised a lot of things, and I went back to a board meeting and said to the board, hey, this great organization and so forth, and they said, hey, hold on there, Haas. You need to dial it down a bit. Who is this group? What do they do? And they brought out the L word often, and that L word was liability. Right? So what is our liability by partnering with a group in the way that we're talking about and so forth? And they did an absolutely outstanding job of helping vet this through. That included board members attending their programs and really delving down in there. What ultimately happened was we wrote a grant to the Cleveland Foundation and got $23,000 specifically for, at the time the term would have been special needs programming that we were able to then start to hire Connecting for Kids to do programs that, going on almost 15 years later, these programs are not only still in the library, Connecting for Kids has expanded to be the resource all across Northeast Ohio, from Elyria to Solon, has served tens of thousands of families in ways that could have never been predicted. And it has been mutually beneficial for us to be supporting Connecting for Kids because the Connecting for Kids families are lifelong library users. And that's a partnership that has paid dividends over and over and over again. Carol Foundation is an organization that supports individuals and families that have concern about brain health, dementia, Alzheimer's, those kinds of things. And so this is located in Westlake as well, up on Detroit Road. And Jerry Gevis, the executive director, just does a wonderful, marvelous job. And once again, we're going through that model of being able to support them by taking programming to the facility at Carolyn L. Farrell Foundation up on Detroit Road, but also having Farrell Foundation do programming here. So the support groups meet here. And then that led to us being involved strategically with them to get the city of Westlake designated as a dementia-friendly city. And now there's a committee that is citywide that is a partnership, Lydia Gadd at the community center, so the city, Carolyn Farrell, us, Many of the nursing homes and assisted living facilities are part of this. Businesses, Zuzu Chocolate. If you haven't been to Zuzu Chocolate, they are wonderful. One of their missions is to some of their profits go back to supporting Alzheimer's Association, because I believe the lady who owns it was her mother or grandmother that passed away from Alzheimer's, and so a big part of, if you're buying chocolate there, you're helping support research for Alzheimer's. And so this is the pond that we want to swim in. We want to be in this milieu where we can support organizations through the resources of the library, because that community can then get that information, but then that community will also rely on their public library in ways that they maybe didn't think that they could. So that's what our partnerships are all about. Partnerships can be really anything from, I've always said there's two ways you can do a program at the library. You can do a program at the library or a program with the library. So if you're an organization and you just want to hold a program, you can book a meeting room, do your own program. You're allowed to say that it's at the library and all that, that's all good, but it's your program and that's it. But if you partner with the library, and we feel like it's mutually beneficial, now the library is helping promote it. We're putting resources in terms of staff and those kinds of things to make it a library partnership program. At its basic level, that's mostly what our programs are, but in other cases, we go a little bit beyond that, again, with maybe doing some grants, or like with the Rotary Club, probably a really great example of a partnership. Westlake Bay Village Rotary has an annual Art Fest, and we'll talk a little bit more about that down the road, but that's a partnership between a service organization and the city of Westlake, the library, the schools. We all work together to make that happen. And then the other service organization in town that is very important to us is the Kiwanis, and we have members of the Kiwanis here as well. And the Kiwanis is a wonderful organization that meets here regularly. We contribute and help with their pancake breakfasts and things of that nature. And so service organizations have kind of taken it on the chin in the last number of years with declining memberships and things like that. But now we're actually starting to see a little bit of a turnaround where members, Kiwanis are adding members, Rotary's adding members. It's an exciting time to be part of these service organizations. But the nice thing is those organizations typically meet here at the library and see that value. So that's a big thing for us. To be involved in the community means to be participating. And I should probably also point out that there probably isn't an organization in Westlake that we don't have somebody in our organization embedded in. So we give staff, not a ton, but a little bit of time to attend. For instance, Erin Manning is on a advisory board for the Community Services Department. So we're staying connected to Lydia and so forth. I've got an employee that is kind of new to us, but a member of Kiwanis. She can be the rep for Kiwanis. But that way, when these groups are thinking through, we're doing this, how can the library help, they think of us, and we are mutually beneficial. I kind of want to perhaps make this a little more of a dialogue, so before I just keep rambling and on and on and on, are there any questions or any thoughts or concerns about our strategic plan direction or anything around these partnerships? That also gives me an opportunity to give a pregnant pause and take a sip. Okay. Move on. So can't get through this without a little bit of numbers. Numbers can be boring, but let's see if I can make them exciting. Almost 300,000 visits a year. I mean, first of all, to me, that's pretty exciting. When you hear things like, oh, there's still a library? Why do we need a library? I don't know, 300,000 visits, can't be wrong. That's a lot of visits coming through this library. And I can't remember if it's on the next slide. Oh, I've got the slides in front of me. One of the things I like to point out is that about 10% of, I don't have the exact number, but it's usually around 30,000 people a year will attend a meeting or a program in this building. 30,000 a year out of 300,000 visits. Now, that could be representative. A lot of those folks may be people who the only reason they ever use their public library, and that's key, their public library, right, is to come to a meeting. I don't need books, I don't need DVDs, but I need a meeting space. And these meeting rooms, we have, I think it's a grand total of 7, because we added 2 to the upstairs. They are booked. If you try to book a meeting here on a Monday through Thursday night, and you didn't book it 3 months out in advance, you're not getting in. And that's with 7 meeting rooms. So we have everything from small to extra large. We have the conference room that holds about 12 people. Then we have the small, which is the craft room, about 20, 25. Then we have the medium, which is, that's craft room. This would, the Dover would be medium, about 50 people. We can get in here comfortably. Then you've got the large, the Porter room back there that can, as we said, we had 140 people. We could get more if we needed to. So probably about 160 is the capacity in there. In addition to that, we've got the computer training lab that we often press into service that can hold about 40 or 50. And then we have 2 meeting rooms on the second floor. The second floor was never open to the public until January of last year. We have 2 rooms up there that we're constantly putting into service because that many people need a free place. When I say free, the library's not free, right? We all know that. The library's not free. Anytime you hear a librarian say, why don't you use the library? It's not free. We have all paid for it. It is your library, it's our library, it's not free. But once you paid for it, right, in your taxes, you then get to rent the room for free. So we have all these folks using these, what kinds of folks are using these meeting rooms? Everything, Kiwanis meets here, Rotary meets here. Every HOA within 10 miles meets here. Girl Scouts meet here. They're right next door, actually. The Girl Scouts are meeting here. Toastmasters meet here. There's just nothing you can't think of. We have private sector businesses meet here as long as they're meeting for like training or organizational purposes. They can book the room. Can't sell things, can't run a business out of here, but we do quite a lot where groups are just meeting here all the time. And I think that's often overlooked at how important that is to have a place in the community where people, and go back to our mission, right, that connection, a place where the community can connect. Our meeting rooms are super important to that. And we just had a significant upgrade to the technology. So it's a cutting edge technology where you can, for instance, right here, if we wanted to be Zooming right now in this room, the equipment's all set up. You can press a button or two, and then a meeting will be Zooming automatically. So my Rotary Club, we meet every Wednesday morning at 7:30 a.m., and we typically will get about 15 to 18 people attending in person. And every week in and out, I'll have anywhere from 1 to 5 people who will Zoom into that meeting. And I guarantee you, most of those people who are Zooming in regularly, they wouldn't be in Rotary if they didn't have that option. They can't make it to the building, they can't make it to the meeting, they would just drop away, but hey, yeah, I can drop in the meeting via Zoom. We're keeping people engaged, and the library has made that easy for that to happen. Back in the day, prior to COVID, in particular, we used to circulate about 1 million items a year. That's dropped a little bit. It is coming back. I don't know that we'll ever see, 1.2 million or 1.3 million circs again necessarily. There's reasons for that. But this is still a number of circulations that would be tops in any library this size in the country. As many of you know, my home stomping grounds are Missouri and Kansas and that. You start looking at libraries, first of all, they're not going to have a lot of libraries this size. And if they did, they're not circulating anywhere near this. You're looking at numbers that are about 1/3 to 50%. Most libraries in the country, and you can get that data from the IMLS. You can sort all kinds of ways and see that we really excel at people using materials. And I'll talk a little bit more about collections in a little bit too. There's some interesting facts about that. I think I said 1,000. What I meant to say was 1,800 programs, and that's 1,800 programs a year. Again, some of those programs might have 5 or 6 people in them, and some may have 140. But we do our best to meet the mission by offering things that are of interest to everybody. This is a big community. We don't expect that everybody will like every program, and the beauty is then you don't have to attend it. If you don't like that program, but if you're saying there isn't a program up here that you could be interested in, I'd be shocked, but I'd like to know because we'd probably like to offer that program. Every once in a while, I'm not gonna lie, we probably had a program or two that was a clunker, but hey, you try them, you see what people like, but by and large, our programming is very well received and appreciated, everything from story times for the kids to historical programs and training programs. And those are programs that are in this room. The other thing we do, so a program might be a training program, we also offer one-on-one training in different areas as well that we can talk about. Outreach visits, those are visits to, Westlake it's kind of crazy. I think the number is 18 or 19 assisted living or nursing homes in Westlake. Westlake is 16 square miles. 30,000 people, 34,000 people, and we have almost 20 assisted living facilities in Westlake. That is a lot. So we have an outreach librarian who actually visits, went around all of those facilities. Sarah Beebe is wonderful. She takes books to those locations and then goes and then picks books up. She does programs at places where people would not be able to get out otherwise. Sarah Beebe's making that happen. We also have a program for people who are homebound is the term that we use, so they just can't get out of their house for any reason. We will actually visit them and take them books, pick up books. And of course, as you can imagine, while that's important, it usually isn't the books that's the most important part of that delivery. It's that human contact, right? It's keeping that connection. We also have, so I mentioned 1,800 programs. There are also 2,000 public meetings of all kinds, and those kinds of meetings would be more your HOA type programs, organizational meetings. And then passports are a really interesting thing. 1,100 passports. Libraries started to be able to offer passports about 10 years ago because it used to always be the post office. And I'm not cracking on Westlake Post Office, but it's, I think, kind of a fact. Their hours were not great. Like you could go over there during the day, and on Saturday it was between 11 and 4, but we closed for lunch from 1 to 2:30 or something. And it was sort of, you know, it wasn't convenient necessarily. And it was the postal people, so if they had a line over here, you might be waiting for a passport over here. We do passports almost every day, and a lot of times it's passport after passport after passport. And it happens to also be big business for us. We are not allowed to process those for free. The government makes us charge, and they even, you know, there's a portion of the fee that the library gets to keep. And we're like, well, we don't necessarily need to keep that. The government's like, you have to, because they want it to be fair anywhere you go, to be consistent. So when we went to passports 10 years or so ago, it really coincided nicely with us doing away with library fines. So we actually, I would swear to it, but I think by now we're making more revenue in passports than we were in collecting fines. And we don't have to fight with people over 15-cent overdue fines or 30 cents. And if you think that we didn't fight with people over, when I say fight with them, like people come in and demand, and we'd be like, well, and then we would always cave because we don't want to fight. So we don't have to have those unpleasant conversations. It's made patrons happier, it's made library staff happier, and we didn't lose the income that we were getting. In fact, we're probably getting more. Right now, a very strange thing is going on. I don't know if it's strange or not. There's some libraries that are no longer able to, if you've seen this in the news, I just want to explain it quickly because since I'm talking about passports, we are a government entity. The Porter Library is not a nonprofit. We're not a 501c3. We are a political subdivision of the state. So we're not a state agency either, but we are a political subdivision of the state, which means we are government. We are allowed to process passports. There are certain kinds of libraries that are not. And in Ohio, that is mainly the association libraries. So there it's a whole different animal. They work kind of like us, but they are a 501c3. And if they were processing passports, they have been told to cease and desist. So some libraries are no longer able to process passports. That's not us. We're good. We've even confirmed we're good. But like Elyria, I think, was an association library. Sandusky, a few others. They're no longer allowed to do that, and that affects us. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's any other. When we think about the library, there's lots of statistics. When it comes down to what we do here, we do a lot, and yet we don't do a lot. We have materials for checkout, right? We have materials. That's what libraries are about. Materials, information, and we have programs. And outside of that, right, those are the things that we do. So our numbers are really going to focus around those kinds of things. And we do try and quantify that the best that we can. Is there any area of the library that I maybe didn't touch on that you might be curious about as far as statistical data or anything along with before we move on to our budget and how we pay for all this? Yeah.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Are book clubs considered programs?
They are. Mm-hmm. Yep, they are. And we've got one book group that meets here that I think has 30 people in it. Like 30 people attending a book group. It has to be in the board room. It's fantastic. And then we've got more niche. So we have some book groups that are very niche. And there might only be 7 or 8 people that attend that, but that's very valuable, and then big book groups. We will talk about the makerspace, yes. Why don't I just talk about the makerspace right now? I don't think I had a specific slide about it. It was more down the line. Just make sure. Let me talk about it now. And in the last, not this year, the previous 2 years, we underwent a number of renovations and upgrades to the library to stay up on top of what people, and it all came out of, all the renovations came out of a space planning project that we did, in which, and maybe you'll remember, we stood in the lobby for several weeks with our architect, and we had these boards out, and we asked people, what would you like to see? And out of that came multiple improvements, and one, and I'm looking out the window, I can almost see it, one of the biggest ones that was super cool is the Friends Programming Pavilion. Our Friends group is so amazing. They were turning 50 years old, and they wanted to do something signature for that, and so they donated $100,000 to make that pavilion programming pavilion happen. Truly remarkable. In the meantime, we gussied up some of the other areas that were either not looking great or just needed to be built out so people could have more collaborative space. And one of those, if you remember back to when this building opened in 2002, shortly after, we had a cafe in the library, and everybody loved the cafe. The short version is we had 3 different cafes over time before we didn't have one anymore. And when that went out of business, people would complain a lot, like, well, you don't have, we love the cafe. And one of our volunteers, who probably shouldn't have said this, but it really did hit the mark, she said to a patron, well, if everybody who said that they loved the cafe as much as they did went into the cafe, we'd probably still have a cafe. True, not the way we normally want to get the message across, but people loved the idea. Wow, you have a cafe in here, as they were walking by it, not buying a cup of coffee, right? It was tough. Plus, we were the landlord, and I didn't like being a landlord, right? Having a lease out there and so forth. We decided that floor space would be much better used to have a makerspace in there. So what's a makerspace? Makerspace is where you actually create things. You can build things. You can 3D print. You can make a T-shirt. You can make a mug. You can do all. You can write a song and record it in the booth. And so you say, well, that seems kind of odd. That's not like checking materials out. That's what libraries do. And this is the way I've always kind of thought about that. Most people, the mindset of a library is that we provide access to content, and we do and always have. You come in, you read a book, and you get that information, whether just for enjoyment or to learn something, but you're accessing that information and you use it as you see fit. Now, some of that information might be that you would, I'm trying to think of a good example, you go to our woodworking section and you open a book and you're like, oh, that's how you build that thing, and you go home and you build and you create your content at home. But in the library, creating content, is the makerspace new? No, I would argue that for years people would come into the library, they'd grab a book on how to write a resume. Back in the old days, they'd walk right over to a typewriter, then the computer, and they would create content right there in the library. They would type up their resume, they would access the information, and then create the information in the library. So the library has always sort of been about creating content to a certain degree. A makerspace takes that to the next level and says, we have equipment in here in which you can create content and learn. So it gets back to our mission of learning in an ever-changing world. Most of what's in there isn't going to be robust enough or sustainable for you to run your business on our makerspace. What it does do, if you don't know anything about 3D printing, you're like, what's this 3D printing? It was very difficult for me to imagine something being 3D printed, right? That's a crazy concept till you see it. And so you can come to the library and see that. For a lot of people, they might be like, well, I don't know if I should be buying a $3,000 3D printer until I understand how it works and so forth. And what we see is people come in, they try the equipment out, and they're like, and then they talk to our staff, and then they go buy their own. So we're not supplanting anything from the private sector. We're helping people make good decisions. Just like we check out guitars. If you want to think about buying a guitar and you want to spend $500 on a guitar, check one out from the library first. Play around on it and go, I think I'm going to stick with this. Then go buy your guitar, right? So some of that creating content stuff it's a starter way to engage in this kind of technology. So the makerspace has been wildly popular, and the traffic that goes through there is far more than anything that was ever going through with the cafe. And with the addition of the snack corner, we seem to be meeting people's ability to, why do you need food in the library? Because believe it or not, some people other than me come in the morning and stay till 9 o'clock at night, and they need sustenance from time to time. Things have really changed, right? Raise your hand if you remember you brought something in the library, you'd be thrown out on your ear for having a drink or food or your cell phone or any of those things. We try to manage all of that in a space that people expect a library to be, but the world has changed. And if you started kicking people out of the library because of a cup of coffee, you wouldn't have a constituency. I mean, you just wouldn't. So, yeah, our makerspace has been a really nice addition. So let's talk about the budget a little bit here. We have a $7 million budget, and just to put that in perspective, this is something that these numbers are very surprising to people sometimes. This building is 77,000 square feet, and we are on 8 acres of ground, which is a lot. The building is maintained by 5.5 people. Our building services department is 5.5 people, and they stay on top of this building like you wouldn't believe. I mean, to me, I walk in and I think it looks as good as it did 25 years ago. But people don't necessarily see the building services people, and we have 86 employees right now. That's down from around 100 20 years ago. We're down to about 86. And people, 86 people at the library? Well, 5 of those, or 5.5 of them, are building services. You might not even see them, right? You've got people in admin that you don't see. We have people in the technical services, the people who buy all the stuff, and those people, you don't see them. They're behind the scenes. Plus, we're open 70 hours a week, and that takes a lot of people to staff those desks. And I would say we're about 60-40 on part-time versus full-time. So you start with part-time people, that starts to make a little bit of sense. So we have this $7 million budget, and it's key that, is this the percentage? This is showing you where it's coming from, I think. Oh yeah, the percentages are here. In Ohio has always been said to have the best libraries in the country because we are the only one that guarantees state money to every library. The only other one is actually Hawaii, but that sort of makes sense. Hawaii's small. But in Ohio, there's 251 libraries, and every one of them gets some level of state money. And it's way too complicated. I will answer any questions if people have them, or maybe later. But every library gets a different ratio of property tax to state. There are still libraries in the state of Ohio that only have state money. They don't have a levy, and they probably won't ever have one. I mean, they might live in a community that doesn't do that. 20 years ago, it was the majority of libraries were only on state funding, and in 20 years, the state has not made it feasible for that to continue, so more and more libraries have both a levy and state funding, but we are kind of an anomaly where we have the highest portion is property tax and the lowest is the state funding. And that's a sort of a legacy of there being other libraries in Cuyahoga County that were in cities, municipalities that were much larger than us, so they got a larger share. And then Westlake exploded with their growth, and the other libraries were like, well, we're not giving you any of our money. And so there's a whole big story there, and it's all worked out. For a good example would be 30 years ago, Lakewood had 75,000 people, and Lakewood is now 50,000. 30 years ago, Westlake had 15,000 people and now has 30,000. But the state money didn't shift between libraries, and it's okay. There's, again, that's a big, long story. Be happy to share it with anybody after the meeting or something like that. But suffice it to say that we get local property tax, the state funding, and then the other is going to be things like the passport income. And when I say investments, I always say that because I want to hurry up and say so nobody gasps and goes, the library's investing. The library is allowed to invest funds as a government entity. We can invest, but what we can invest in is very, very limited and very, very governed and controlled. Like we can't buy junk bonds, right? We can't invest in crypto or anything like that. There's an organization called Star Ohio, which manages government funds for investing, and it is all very conservative and very, safe investments. So we do invest money that is not used to gain a little bit of interest, and that helps make up. It's never a ton of money, but it does help with the budget a little bit. So that's where our revenue comes from. Pretty straightforward. Local and a combination of local and state funding. Our expenses, and the good news is you'll see that our expenses are in fact lower than our income because that's what we always strive for. We are a service-based industry, so it should be no surprise that 60% is tied up with salary and benefits. You come in the library, people expect to get the help they need. And I will say back to the makerspace, one of the things that makes our makerspace more, in my opinion, better than any other makerspace, we staff ours. We staff ours with people that can actually help you. There are other libraries that have makerspace, and they sort of say, well, you can go in there, if you need help, ask us, we might be able to help you. We have people who are in there dedicated to being able to help you. A big part of what we do is materials, so we're spending over $700,000 on stuff. The books that you check out, the DVDs that you check out, but also the electronic stuff that you check out. And then it winds up breaking down, usually for sake of ease, I'll usually cite 15 and 15. So 15% of the budget roughly is the stuff, and the other 15% is keeping the building open. It's the lights, it's the carpet cleaning, it's the contracted services to make the building continue to operate. And then down here you have transfers. This is super important. And I remember years and years and years ago, I think it was my first levy that I ran here, and I went to the Kiwanis Club, and I explained that one of the things that we do here to be fiscally responsible, we have two funds called the Permanent Improvement Fund and the Automation Fund. And every year, we take money out of our operating budget and move it into there because we have a table that lists everything that we know is going to need to be repaired, replaced, fixed, going out 20 years. And then we set money aside, and it's called, what is it, amortizing or I don't know. Amortization, right? Yeah. So that when the time comes for us to pay for that, we have the money, and we don't ever want to be caught coming to the voters and going, we need a new roof, and the new roof is going to cost $1 million, and we didn't really set the money aside, so we have to, ask you for more millage. We would never want to do that. So we plan 20 years in advance to make sure we have the money to do those things. And I'm not kidding, I got a round of applause at the Kiwanis for demonstrating how we do that to ensure that we're sharpening our pencil and being responsible. So when you see transfers, this is setting aside money. This building was opened in 2002. We are very near the end of the lifespan of a normal roof. We are at a very awkward point where do we replace it now for the cost it would cost to replace it, or eke out several more years when it could be more costly, but we're in that zone where we're going to have to replace a roof, and we have the money for it. I want to talk a little bit about the materials budget just quickly, because this is something that comes up with library patrons from time to time. I have heard a couple of times where patrons have said, since you guys are doing so much e-book and e-material, how come my taxes aren't going down? Like, that should be way cheaper than physical books. And if only the world worked that way, it sort of makes sense. The publishers cannot do anything about us buying books and sharing them. That was settled law decades, if not a century ago. That copyright law and the usage was settled for print and physical materials 100 years ago. They can't do anything about it. But the publishers have decided they can hurt us badly on the electronic materials. And it's everything from Amazon having Audible being a proprietary situation. If an author signs up with Audible, they're exclusive. We can't get that content. We just can't even get it, which is, it's just like, it bugs me, but we can't get that content. For the content that the big publishers have, whether it is a audiobook or an ebook, you would think that, well, it's electronic, so if you get a copy, everybody can just share it at the same time, right? Nope. What they do is they'll say, they'll do multiple things. One of the things they'll do is say, if you buy an ebook, you buy it once, and maybe that ebook costs you $25. Well, once, and it can't be used simultaneously, so it's just like a book on the shelf, only one person at a time. So if you've got a demand for electronic materials, you might have to buy multiple copies in electronic because it's not simultaneous use. And by the way, once it's been downloaded or accessed 26 times, you have to now buy another copy. And the rationale would be that a lot of books will circulate about that many times, and then maybe they fall apart or whatever, and then you have to buy a new copy, which happens. So they're like, well, We lose money if you never have to buy a replacement copy for the electronic version. So after every 20 cents, you got to buy it again. And sort of on and on it goes. And the prices for an e-audiobook are higher than a physical audiobook because they can. And so as we start to see our numbers skyrocket in terms of people using electronic resources, that's a potential budgetary issue. How do we manage that? Because we are in no way, shape, or form ready to stop purchasing physical items because A, people want physical items, and there are other libraries that have already made the commitment to getting rid of their physical collections, not rid of, but decimating them. That's not us. We are committed to those physical collections as well. So how do we manage that? How do we do it? That is always on our minds as we manage, especially over the next couple of years, to see how those things go. So that is an area of our budget that I think is very important to pay attention to. Our friends, and wouldn't you know, got some slides here from the friends, and then our friends that are in attendance are not in the pictures, but they're in living right here. Yeah. So our friends are an amazing group. They again, they donated $100,000 for the pavilion, but the real story is that on an annual basis, the Friends are providing around $40,000 a year to the library for us to do programming and other things. They'll support maybe this project over here. One of the really important things, and from my point of view they do, is they give us a small amount of money per year for us to spend on staff, because it would not be appropriate for us to spend taxpayer dollars on, say, a free lunch for our staff members. That would be a bad thing. But if the Friends are paying for it, that's a wonderful thing, because it's a real, it's a morale booster, right? Staff come in during National Library Week. The Friends will pay for a lunch up in the break room. Staff come in, they get a nice meal, and it was provided by the Friends. So there's some things the Friends can do because they are a separate 501c3. They raise their money and they can donate it back to the library. So our friends just, they run the Book Nook. If you have not been to the used bookstore in the front of the library, that used to be kind of hidden back here way. When the gift store went out of business, we had a gift store for 30 years. It was amazing, but it was all run by volunteers, and we just really couldn't find somebody who was willing to put in the hours and time to run basically was a regular business. And so we had to sunset the portables gift store, and a lot of people, I'm guessing we still hear about it, but for several years it was, what happened to the gift store? I can't believe the gift store is gone. But we were able to move the Book Nook forward, and the Book Nook has increased 100% in terms of sales because it's more visible and it's a really nice space. That's one of the primary ways that the Friends raise funds to come back to the library, other than the annual book sale, which is a tremendous undertaking, a Wednesday through Sunday undertaking that in and of itself is going to typically will bring in between $10,000 and $12,000 a year on its own, that comes back to the library. And it takes an army of volunteers to pull that off. And the Friends organization is an organization that's always looking for new members, and if you're not a member of the Friends, $10 to join the Friends for an individual membership, and that comes, is it one or two, one coupon from Mangels, which almost covers these days the entire, yeah, right, if you want a free ice cream. $10 to the Friends, and you get an ice cream, and you get a coupon to the Book Nook. Huh?
Get 10% off at the
Dean's, when you show your.
At Dean's, right, yeah. So membership has its benefits. For $10, being a member of the Friends is a great thing to do. We also have a second 501c3 that supports the library, and that is the foundation. And while they both support very similar kinds of things in the donations back to the library, the Friends is a little bit more real time. We raise money today so that we can give you money today. The foundation is a little bit more about building an endowment, and we're very, very excited that, I guess I can't make the announcement yet, right? We haven't really, well, what we met the other day. I'll just say for now that we have a fund that has around $220,000 in it. Our goal is to get it to $250,000 and then a little bit beyond. But the idea is that the foundation will generate enough interest that it can help support some of the things along the lines of the Friends. So a long-term assist to the library. So what you're seeing there are some images around last year. We had a gala. We're going to be planning another one for next year. We also, the big thing that we do is at the art festival, have the beer and wine garden, just for visibility and also foundation recruitment and to raise a little bit of money that goes back to the library. So we're very grateful to both our friends and foundation. The friends have been around now we're on 52, right? 52 years? I think it's 52. And the foundation foundation was formed in the mid-80s.
84.
Yeah, so it's nigh on, getting close to 50, yeah, so.
And Friends was in 1972.
Yeah, 72, so the foundation's about 10 years behind, yeah. Okay, so we're getting close, folks, to the end here. We're gonna, and I'll be able to take all kinds of questions, but looking ahead, what are we gonna be doing this year? Because, the state of the library was really kind of talking about what happened last year and how we're moving forward. America 250, big deal, right? Everybody's celebrating, it's a very exciting time. One of the things I think is really super cool is that this logo here, the city's version of the logo, was crafted by none other than Heather Finati, our PR marketing manager. So I love it. We got the nod for that. But Tina Arundel at the city is really spearheading all the activities in Westlake and doing an amazing job of coordinating with all of the different service groups and people in Westlake to celebrate this year the 250th signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so we're all on board. We're going to have programs all throughout the year. Part of the World at War Forum programs will be focusing on some of the battles of the Revolutionary War. Women in History will be coming in and doing some presentations. I'm hopeful that I can get the Sons of the American Revolution to come in and do a color guard display. All kinds of things from the library, but the city is doing so much, and it will really be focused around the July 4th, the parade, and they've got a really big spectacular event that's going to happen at Clay Park, and I know the Kiwanis are very involved in that as well. So there's a lot going on with, I had some, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything on that. The 250. Parks of the City. Yeah, I got that all covered. So that's going to be a big program, and that's super positive, very exciting. Unfortunately, there is another anniversary that we'll be celebrating. Not celebrating. I'm sorry, that's a completely wrong word. Acknowledging is the 25th anniversary of 9/11. And the reason that would be significant for us to maybe acknowledge it more so than others, if you have not been to Christina's Corner in the back or seen the piece of World Trade Center steel up front, we're in a unique position to draw attention to that, as the family would say, to ensure that we do not forget what happened. We don't forget Christina or what happened on that day. So those are some of the things that we'll either be celebrating or acknowledging in 2026. Also, 2026, this has become quite a big thing for us. The last Saturday in July. This has been very exciting for me as a librarian, and I usually get asked, when I get asked about I've been a librarian for, I know none of you are going to believe this, but I've been a librarian for 35 years. I'm like, no, I know, that's the way, but it's true. I've been at this a long time, and I'd like to think that I've done a lot of really cool and impactful things in my career. The number one thing that I believe I've done or been a part of in my career more than anything is the helping the formation of Connecting for Kids and what that has meant to the community and individuals. But this one is kind of a fun thing that I'm really glad I've got to be a part of, and that's an art festival. We get asked a lot, is this the old festival from the hospital, right? We all remember that. It's not, but it's great that people remember that there was an art festival in Westlake. It benefited the hospital. They haven't done it since, I think, 2013. We revived a festival 6 years ago. This year will be the 6th year. It's a one-day event instead of 3-day, and it is a really big community event. We get 2,000 people in one day to come through this art festival, and we just keep growing it every year. We're very excited about it. So this year should be another really great year. We're excited because we always have a featured artist. The first year, our featured artist was Eileen Dorsey, She grew up in Westlake. She went to school in Westlake. She has been voted the best artist in Cleveland 8 times. And she has a studio down at the 78th Street Gallery. And every time we go down there, I stop in to visit her, and the first thing I do is I walk in the door and look to the right, and there is her mayoral proclamation of Eileen Dorsey Day in Westlake, which is specifically enjoyable to her because she grew up here in Westlake and had a day in Westlake. So that was a big deal for us. Well, this year, our featured artist is the Beck Center. So we're really, again, that partnership of being able to, the Beck Center is a very well-esteemed arts organization in Cleveland, and they're gonna be our featured artist. The year before we had, or 2 years ago, we had the Cleveland Museum of Art. So we're bringing in some heavy hitters to this festival, and it's usually a good day had by all. And on and on and on. I think some of the things, just to read, I look at my notes, when you do something like this, you always risk leaving somebody out. There's no way you can give kudos to the literally hundreds and hundreds of people and organizations that make this library great. And so you have to mention people. But when I think about our partnerships, and I really dwelled on Carolyn L. Farrell and Connected for Kids, but our partnerships are our strength, and you don't want to leave people out like the city of Westlake, right? The city school district. We work so well. That path between here, last May, we had 60 visits from the elementary school over here for tours and visits to the library. The school loves that. We love it. The parents love it. That partnership has been amazing. We're really grateful for that. But then there's the groups like the Garden Club and the Herb Guild that do so much for the library, and all of the people that we routinely interact with. We had the partnership with the community center. We did a program with Chef Garrett, who came over and did a cooking demonstration here. All of these things, I don't want to leave anybody out, but that really is the strength of this library, is the partnerships and people who are engaged. And this is the most important thing, and I'll end with this. People say to me all the time, like, they'll come up, I love your library, you have a great library. And I'm not trying to be flip or disrespectful when I say it's not my library, it's your library. And I don't want anybody to ever forget that. There is a cost to this library, and we take that very seriously when we, with being stewards of people's tax dollars and what we do here. It is your library, and so this is about presenting to you what we've done, what we hope to do, and if there's something that we're not doing as well as we should be, or something we're not doing, we definitely want to hear so we can do that.